We're back to the Neil Haley show, and you know what? It's always exciting to have a actor that's continues to have great projects coming up. So I'm excited to welcome Lauren Buglioli to the program. Lauren, thanks for stopping by, and we're going to talk about Bad Monkey and much, much more. But Lauren, you really take it a little differently in acting than some other actors because you do have your hands in a lot of different things, don't you, Lauren?
Oh, thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me. And, I've found that the more balance I can have, really pursuing other things I love as well, that it makes life all the more full. So, I used to be pretty one dimensional when I was a kid and I've just learned with age that it's great to have a lot of things that light you up.
All right, so let's talk about this latest project and how excited you are about Bad Monkey. Tell me about your character and what's Bad Monkey.
Yes. So Bad Monkey is from Doozer Productions, Bill Lawrence, who created Shrinking and Ted Lasso. It's on Apple TV Plus. The first two episodes are out now, and it centers around Andrew Yancey, who's played by Vince Vaughn. And he formerly works as a detective for the Miami Police Department, now a health inspector in the Keys, but he stumbles upon a severed arm. And he thinks if he can solve the murder behind this severed arm, he's going to be able to make his way back onto the force. So he runs into a lot of Floridian oddballs, let's say, and I'm one of those oddballs. So without giving anything away, I play Heather with the Weather, who is quite a tricky lady, and was a lot of fun to play.
So how did you prepare for this role?
So I interviewed a couple of meteorologists to figure out, because, my character, again, is quite different off camera than she presents on camera. So I talked to a couple of meteorologists about how cutthroat that world can be and how competitive. And I found out that it's not all that different to the entertainment industry in some ways. So I watched a lot of weather reports, which served me well because I ended up getting to improv on set, which was a ton of fun. And, just kind of became immersed in the world of meteorology. And then also, thankfully, she's not the nicest lady. So I've run into some mean girls in my time and got to draw on that experience a little bit.
Yeah, so let's kind of talk. What did you learn about meteorology and how important it is, I guess, on camera and off camera in that kind of a job?
Yeah, I learned that it's really challenging to get your start, and that you get really undesirable times, and that you're kind of clawing your way to the top. Working in local weather can be really challenging and competitive, and not necessarily the most supportive environment. So that kind of helped me justify my character's behavior in a way that she might have been hardened by some of her experiences that she'd been through. And I just found out that it's, can be challenging, in that you're not necessarily compensated well from the jump. And it takes a lot to get to, say, a Good Morning America, in some of those really coveted positions, that local weather can be quite grueling. So learned a lot about that.
And it's interesting when you talk about local weather or any of the different things, things have changed so much for people, right? They go to, let's say, a small town like Toledo, Ohio to be an anchor, and yet they see it's much
Hmm.
more difficult to get to ABC. It's not an easy process, and
Right.
they're not getting paid enough to really survive on it. And they're working so many hours. I had an anchor I was working with, and she was an investigative reporter, as a client of mine, and what I learned from her is that, man, it's not, they have so much power because they're on television, because still people watch
Hmm.
TV. It's an older group of people, but really they have so much power, yet they're getting paid nothing.
Right.
That's the
Right.
process of
And
moving.
discovering that. Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea, the grueling hours, and how little pay they can start off with. And it helped me make sense of why Heather might be a tricky lady. So, I was very lucky. I got to speak to some meteorologists who were very kind and passionate about what they do. But, I imagine it's got to really wear people down.
It wears people down, and the way we make it big and look at you as an actor, how you see how much different it was than people that were dealing with it in 20 years ago, right? There's so many different projects. Yet,
Mm,
where do you get those projects? What are the best projects for you, and where is it gonna lead you in your career in the right path? Because so many people are creating content.
right.
Content is king. And are you better off to go make money on social media? Some of these people have, so these are the challenges that you go through. But it seems like, you have, I talked about before, and when I was Googling you, that you have a definite another side than acting in what you do to try to really enjoy. And you do a lot of work with charities and volunteering. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I work with the Heart Gallery in Tampa. I was doing some theater in Tampa, Florida for a while, and was introduced to Heart Gallery that places children in foster care and forever homes. And there are Heart Galleries across the country. But I was just so moved by the work that they do and the difference that they make in the lives of these kids. And two of my best friends are adopted, so I've just always been really passionate about that. And I fundraise for them yearly. I teach mindset classes and fundraise every year for my birthday to support them, and I love to spread the word about them. And I have a degree in early childhood education and special education, so I help facilitate horseback riding lessons at a farm in Atlanta called Chastain Horse Park that teaches children and adults of all abilities how to horseback ride, and it's therapeutic horseback riding lessons. So I found a way to kind of incorporate lots of things that I love so that there's more balance, right? And it's been really meaningful to have many things that I love, and it just makes life all the more rich.
Yeah, it definitely makes life all the more rich, and, it's a powerful thing, to help people, and that's why I was talking about your background's much different than a lot of actors, right? You talk about,
Oh,
you're the
thanks.
mindset coach, and you really are looking at, building a personal brand, not just an acting brand.
Right, right. And I had a pretty rough go of it when I was younger, when I was acting, and I just loved to try to be who I needed to hold a safe space for people to process the ups and downs of the business, and to try to encourage people to not get their identity wrapped up in what they perceive as success or failure, because all of it's fleeting, right? So the more, the interesting thing about this business is you're constantly confronted with yourself, and there's always new mindset challenges. So I try to, it's helped me to look at all of those as opportunities to grow rather than a way to judge if I'm worthy or not, right? So I try to foster that in other people because it makes it all the more meaningful to feel like you're growing in the midst of the ups and downs of the business rather than just feeling defeat or victory, right? Because again, all that comes and goes and is very fickle.
When you think about mindset challenges, this is a great, point, is that we, a lot of times allow ourselves. So define mindset for me, because I'm intrigued by this, but you're working with actors about mindset. But I think this is something that my listeners
Mhm.
and viewers will look at. And I look at it all the time too, because I'm struggled as an entrepreneur. I have a digital agency. I also
Mhm.
I also have my personal brand, and I have my show, and I have all these different things, but yet we constantly want more. But why do we want more? And how do we have a positive
Right.
mindset to go through the challenges that both of our industries go through on a regular basis?
Absolutely. So for me, mindset is really the lens through which you choose to see things, right? So I can see a role, like you'll hear it all the time that the entertainment industry or entrepreneurship is the toughest industry there is, right? But if you're looking at everything as conditioning for what's meant for you and you're finding the lessons in it and you're allowing it to grow you, then that mindset I think makes you unstoppable, right? And I don't ever encourage anyone to discount their feelings because things are going to sting, things are going to be disappointing. But when you use that as fuel for the next chapter or the next challenge, it really helps you build resiliency and grit. So I love to, kind of play a reframe game with people that, you didn't get that job or that partnership didn't work out, but what did you learn from it and how is it preparing you for the thing you can't see yet?
Right. And so you can look at it in spirituality wise, but you also can look at it in specific ways that you gotta put your heart in your sleeve at times. But yet you have to know that you're going to a
Yep.
specific goal. You can't, a lot of people, they don't confront the challenges, right? They just kind of ignore those challenges
Mm-hmm.
and just go full force into one focus and one goal in their whole life. Like there's a professional goal, there's a
Right.
relationship goal, there's a health goal, yet we only focus on one at a time. And sometimes everything else takes a back seat when you're talking about entrepreneurship, acting, performance. I'm a former professional wrestler, so I knew this when I was young, how I basically just
Wow.
gave up my whole life. And I was thinking of coming back, and now I'm like, I don't know. It's so weird what we do, but we
Yeah.
have to shift when we really feel that intuition going. And I think that's mindset in a lot of ways. And successful people just know.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
What we
absolutely. And I love what you said about, we can pour so much into career, right? And I love to encourage people to look at the different buckets of their life, whether it's, relationships, spirituality, experiences, like, and say, okay, how am I consciously pouring into all these areas of my life? And it can be little steps, right? But so that it's not just pouring into our career and then we wake up one day and go, wait, it's been years since I've called that friend. It's been years since I've done something fun for myself that's not related to my industry. So I love that you bring that up because I think it's really easy to get a singular focus. But I found that life is more meaningful when we're slowly building in all areas of our life.
But we all get caught up in that, and you don't wanna beat yourself up for that, but also then you have to say, "What's the reason?" I was speaking to somebody on the podcast yesterday, and she talked about, "What's the reason why?" Let's just say I wanna make $1,000,000. Well, why do you wanna make $1,000,000? Is it because you wanna prove everyone else wrong, or do you wanna do it because you can help so many people? There has to be a why, and a lot of times in mindset, like, you look at the greatest players in the world, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, you look at or any athletes, professional athletes, actors that made it to the highest level. They have something there, and that's through their mindset that they know they're going to achieve this, but yet they're not going to be thinking that there's going to be a disappointment around the corner or what if I don't? They don't have that what if. But yet
Right.
they're willing to go through
Right.
the storm. Go ahead.
Absolutely. And I think, I don't know about you, but anyone who's really impacted my life, I don't look back and think, oh, yeah, and they were so successful. And that's why they brought so much meaning to my life. It's who they were as a human being, right? So I think, it's this balance of saying, what is success and why do I want this? And how can I cultivate joy and fulfillment on a day to day basis, independent of if I'm on set or not, or if I'm making that deal or not, or if I've got $1 million in the bank. But at the end of the day, it's corny, but it does come back to like who are we in the world and how can we be of service, just independent of all this external that we're conditioned to believe brings our worth and value.
Definitely. And it's like things can change in a drop of a hat. Like you literally
Yeah.
make a decision that changes how you feel. And you're like, okay, now the weight is not on my shoulders anymore. Now it could be again in a day or two, but we have to understand those things. And I think that doing it for the reason you're doing it. If you're doing it for somebody else that was in your life that was doing it and telling you this is doing it or you're not worthy in doing it, that causes you to get this tunnel vision. And but I wonder to know, like in you when you talk about mindset, how many people once they let go does that breed the success and finally their success comes, whatever it is, whatever their goals. And but they got
Yeah.
to look at all the areas too, and how many people can live
Yeah.
all those areas. They're the really the most successful. If it's health, relationships, uh, happiness, just overall fun in their life. How can that is what success is, but you need to have all those areas in a pretty decent way. Doesn't have to be over, but you have to set those goals.
Oh, absolutely. And I think when we think, if our mindset is when I get $1 million in the bank, when I get this role, when I get this opportunity, then I'll be worthy and successful and happy. That's the trap, right? So to say, to come back to a place of knowing you're inherently worthy. And I think it's important for us to have goals and things that light us up and things to work toward. But I found that I have as much worth on my worst day as I do when I'm on mountaintop, right? And my younger self didn't know that. And I think a lot of people, it's easy in society to forget that. So when we can bring people back to, you are inherently worthy and who you are is enough, and you can be of service by how you interact with someone at the grocery store, because we never know what someone else is going through, right? So I think that for me is perspective in a way to live my life that ultimately brings me much more fulfillment than chasing the next thing that I think is going to validate me. Because I
And
think I've
then
seen with a lot of actors, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say validate. That's the thing. Is it validating you or is it validating someone else because they're gonna see where you're at? That's the problem, and
Right,
that's where you have
right.
to really reflect. Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. I like to remind people that if we think we need that thing outside of ourselves to validate us, it's often coming from wounding of like something that happened to us as a kid that we want to prove it, to your point, to prove it to someone or prove it to ourselves that we're enough. And it's like, if that's the carrot you're always chasing, it's never going to be enough. And we've seen enough people at the mountaintop miserable to know that the money and the fame and the things don't bring you joy, right? I think joy really is an inside job. And when we get to the point where we can fall in love with the pursuit of things and growing and who we're becoming and how we're treating people and how we're just being of service as a human being, it changes a lot. And that's been the journey for me, is always coming. And, we forget because we're human and we're not robots. Like we think we need the thing outside of us, and always coming back to, I am enough, I have enough. And I trust that what's coming for me, that I'm being conditioned for it.
Absolutely. All right, we can check out Bad Monkey now already available on Apple TV. And where is the best place we can check you out, Lauren?
Absolutely. I'm on Instagram. My handle is Lauren_Buglioli, Buglioli. And thank you so much for having me, Neil. It was a real pleasure.
Appreciate it, Lauren. Thanks again. Take care. All right,
Thank
you're
you.
listening. You're welcome. You're listening and watching the Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.